Hi, my name is Debbie, and I am obsessed with all things to do with ultrasound. I'm an empty nester who has spent the last 28 years scanning in all different kinds of situations: clinics, hospitals, point of service, emergency departments, private offices, echovascular, general, high risk OB, and want to dive down deep into all things to do with technology, techniques, and transformation. It's time we take ultrasound to the next level. Think of this like your little power boost on your commute to all things ultrasound, along your way to the thing that we call work. So pull up a seat, make sure you're comfy, and be ready to be challenged and encouraged as we learn it's all about the frequency. Well, today I'm talking with a fellow traveler, Aston Wesley. Welcome, Aston.
Thank you. Thank you.
I want you to introduce yourself and tell us, why did you decide to travel?
All right. Well, my name's Aston Wesley, as she said, and I started traveling about 3 years ago with my husband and my two little girls. And I always kind of wanted to travel with my job, but we had kids a little earlier than we planned to have kids. And so we decided to just make it happen with the kids. We were paying all our money to the daycares, and it just worked out for us to be able to have more family time by traveling. So here we
Awesome.
are.
Awesome. And so mostly what drove you to travel is to have more family time?
Yes, that is what that's what we decided to do once the kiddos were here, was just try to get more family time. We were kind of just working opposite schedules and just missing each other. So now I can just work and he can homeschool the kids, and then we have the evenings together and the weekends together, and it just works out very nicely for us.
And your kids are young, right?
Yes, they
Like,
were young. They're getting older. Now they're
yeah.
5 and 7, but they were 2 and 4, I think, when we started traveling. So
Okay.
yeah,
So how have they liked it?
they love it. I think we always go home at least once or twice a year so that they can maintain their friendships back home. But overall, they absolutely love getting to meet different kids and people. And they're just like little thrill seekers. I think the hardest part on them is when we leave a new place that we've been at for a while. Like when we were in Minnesota for 10 months, they had made so many little friends, and they were really sad to tell them goodbye. But overall, they absolutely love it. And McKinley told me, which is my oldest, told me the other day that she was going to travel when she gets older. So
Awesome.
she's like, I just want to keep it going. Like, she's such a
Oh,
thrill
that's awesome.
seeker. Yeah.
Oh, good. So, um, for you as a traveler, tell us some of the things that you've really liked about traveling for yourself as an
I think
ultrasound tech.
for Yeah, I think for me, it's just been like a very awesome like career builder. I think that whenever I started doing maternal fetal medicine, I just thought that, I mean, I worked with some incredible doctors and worked for a great office, but I guess I've learned that there's so many different ways to do things, and that the way you learned it is not the like only way to do things. So it's just been really a great growth opportunity to learn to do things different ways and realize people practice differently, and to just really learn all the things there is to know, because you'll just never know it all.
Yeah. Yeah. And flexibility, the flexibility of it all.
Right.
Yeah. What have been some of the challenges that you faced with traveling?
I guess like finding housing has been the most annoying part of traveling,
Yeah.
especially with a family. We had really good housing experiences, and like by booking it ahead of time until we didn't. And then we ended up in a place that had like a roach infestation. And, the pictures were beautiful on the website. And so,
Right.
like that was rather annoying. and disgusting. And so then we found another housing option there. So I think housing has been the biggest just like obstacle that we've came into because you just don't know. And so now we get like a Airbnb our first week and then we find housing. But we're actually in Portland, Oregon right now, and we got an Airbnb our first week. Um, and housing was very hard to find here. So it was actually rather stressful. Like it was nice, like getting to tour places, but yeah, we were kind of like, oh crap, we might have to get another Airbnb. And we were kind of tired of living out of our cars after traveling across the country for a week and then staying in an Airbnb for a week. So that is definitely one of the most challenging parts of traveling. And then of
Yeah.
course, just differing personalities in the workplace, like physicians specifically. You just never know what you're gonna get.
Right. Yeah, I went to dinner with another traveler last night. I'm in Illinois, Springfield, Illinois right now, and as we record this. And so it's interesting, right? We all come at traveling with different perspectives. You have taken your whole family, which I think is really a challenge to do it. But she's married and is just trying to pay off some debt so that she doesn't have to work so much when she does go back home and start a family. You know,
Yeah.
I am an empty nester and so have decided to travel, just see the world and get paid while I'm traveling and uh, be that adventure seeker kind of person. So the positives for me, things that I like to do are go to national parks, and I am a huge baseball fan. So I like to try to get in a few baseball stadiums during that season. So for me, just uh, seeing the world and traveling and seeing how people practice medicine different. And I have been doing it for quite a while. So I didn't want to be that person who was just so stuck in my ways that I'm not open to any other thing. And man, traveling will definitely open your eyes to the million and gazillion different ways to do it. And then
Yes.
I don't know about you, but I also think it's really interesting. I do think housing is really a challenge. My last location, I was in Arizona and it's a smaller community. So I think when you're in smaller communities, housing can be a challenge because there's tons of travelers who come, like tons of traveling nurses and everybody to fill that hospital need. And so housing was really a challenge. I finally was able to find housing. I rent my home that I have in Minnesota. And so sometimes I carry a double rent or a mortgage. I carry a mortgage and then I'm paying rent. And so that kind of adds to the challenge for me to find housing as well. And so I found a room in a lady's house, but she was older and she just needed a best friend. She was 71 and she just wanted to tag along with all my adventures.
Yeah.
And I am Little Miss Independent, and she had quite a few health um needs, and I didn't want to be responsible for that. And so um and I think as a 71-year-old, she was just like, oh, it's like I have my daughter back in my home, and so she wanted to do my laundry and she wanted to
Oh wow.
yeah, and she stayed up late until I got home some nights. And I'm like, I'm 54. You don't have to stay up for me.
Yes.
So there were some challenges there, and I've stayed in people's homes just by running their room, and it's never been an issue like that before, but you just don't know what you're getting into, all the time. I eventually found another location and moved out of that place, but yeah, housing is definitely, I would agree with you, one of the biggest challenges. A lot of research goes into it for me. I research like what's a good school district, and usually in good school district areas you'll find good housing, but in
Yeah.
good school district areas you don't always um that good housing isn't always available, so you kind of have to research the area and kind of get to know where if you can, when I researched this area, the population of the area, I found out, I'm finding in my research, I want to know how big the area is that I'm going to, what's around it, what are places I can go to when I am there. So when I do come to a location, I came to this location because I'm a native of St. Louis. And so St. Louis is 2 hours from here,
Yeah.
and so I can go home and see some friends and family, and then I'm close to Chicago. So gone to Chicago for a few baseball games, and then a friend in Indianapolis. So not far from there. So there's plenty here to do, but then there's also other things in the area to do. And so I'm sure that's kind of the same for you, right? When you're looking at a place.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, there are definitely every place that we've went, if you go on Google and look up like the crime rate, it sounds like you're gonna get shot as soon as you drive into the city. Like,
Right.
and so you really have to just like make sure that you know where not to stay. Like, don't just, you really have to do some research on the area because every city has a bad, in fact, the place that I'm from in Tennessee, I think is like a great place to raise a family, super safe. I would recommend it to anybody. And if you research the city I'm from, like it sounds like it's a terrible place to live. And it's just,
Right.
I feel like you get that anytime you research an area, but you do have to do some research because there, even in the town I'm from, like there are parts of town you don't particularly want to be in at nighttime or whatever. And it's just like that anywhere that you go. So you definitely have to consider like the safety of an area, and not just blindly pick out your housing options. And if all the housing in one area is way less than everywhere else, there's probably a good reason for that.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think it's been helpful, like if I have an interview with the manager, that's one of the questions I ask. Are there any areas that I really need to avoid for housing? Like, can you give me the names of specific areas that would be better
Yeah.
housing, And so sometimes that's really helpful, and sometimes there's people that you work with who have extra facilities in their basement or, rental
That's,
housing or something like that. And so sometimes they can help you out, but typically it's not until after you get there. And so you have to have housing before,
yeah.
so yeah,
Yeah,
I agree.
absolutely.
I think housing is a huge challenge. And then, I was talking to the other traveler last night at dinner too, and we were talking about um so many times you interview for these jobs and you're like, oh yeah, I have all these certifications that you want. Like, you know, my certifications go, an arm long, and then you get there and then you're just doing low risk um population type scans. You're not doing high risk. And she goes, yeah, that's a little frustrating. And I said, yeah, because sometimes if you don't use it, you kind of forget it,
Yeah.
and um, I think there's a couple reasons for that. I think one is not that they don't think we're qualified to do it. I think a lot of it has to do with the physicians. Would you agree with that?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And so how comfortable the physicians are. So sometimes I think it's protection for us because some of these physicians, I swear we work with so many super intelligent people, but yet have not a whole lot of people skills, And
Hmm.
so I think sometimes it's a protection for us, you know. But
Yeah.
then also I wonder if you've run into this too. Everywhere you go, people really take pride in their work, and so it's kind of like this attitude of, well, nobody can do it like us, or we're
Yeah.
really
I
don't.
think a lot of places are kind of like in that mindset of like the way that they do it is the only way to do it. Kind of like I really was when I started traveling. I had a very open mind, fortunately. So I've realized there are truly so many ways to do things, and they're not, one way's not better than the other. But I think that when you go into a place as a traveler, most of those places feel like their way is the right way. And so you just kind of have to follow suit. And that I've learned I'm okay with that because I'm there to help. But it
Right.
definitely does you do run into those situations.
Right. And I think sometimes if you're not doing it their way, they assume you don't know what you're doing, you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so so it's a little frustrating. It's like it's not that I don't know what I'm doing, it's that I've seen it done 20 different ways. Like one question I seem to have to ask is so on like biophysical profiles, does the baby have to continuously breathe for 30 seconds? Or do you count like 10 seconds here, 10 seconds there, 5 seconds here, and add them?
Yeah.
Because I've seen it done both ways.
Yeah.
And when I ask the question, they kind of look at me cross-eyed, like, don't you know how to do a biophysical? Well, yeah, I do. I've just had to do it a lot of different ways.
Yeah.
So, I do run into that is where people might think you don't really know what you're doing because of some of the questions I've had to ask, but it's not because I don't know. It's just because I've had to do it a lot of different ways, and I
Yeah.
need
It's
to.
very challenging to not like to go from being like where you can read your doctor's minds, and just like
Ah,
hand them what they need or go where they want you to go. But like you don't have that with new doctors and stuff. So you definitely have to like learn your doctors and your places and be humble in the fact that like you don't know what they're going to ask you to do next if you're doing an amnio, like everybody just does it differently.
right, right. And one of the travelers the other day was saying that, oh yeah, I can do a cervical length, or I said it the other day, oh yeah, I've done GYNs, I can do a GYN. And I come up and like, and they're like, yeah, that's not the way we do a GYN. I'm like, oh, okay, well, tell me what you need.
Mm-hmm.
So, and she's like, the other travelers, like, I took it, they're like, do you want to take it into the doctor or do you want me to? And they're like, oh, yeah, I can take it in, the traveler said. And the traveler took it in, and the doctor's like, these pictures are horrible. And, and she's like, well, tell me what you need and, what you're looking for and blah, blah, blah. And so, she's like, well, would you like for me to do it again? Or, and she's like, no, I'll let it go this time. I'll bring her back again and we'll do it again. And so then I said to the traveler, so your pictures weren't really all that horrible because they were diagnostic and she could get the information she needed. It just wasn't the pictures that she likes. And
Yeah.
so it's having to interpret that, but it comes across so rough and gruff at the time, like
Right.
you don't know what you're doing, type of a thing, which I think we run into a lot with a lot of physicians who are super smart but don't have great people skills. So uh,
Right. It sounds like that physician could have gave her some feedback for the future, like of what she actually does want. Because if you don't
right,
verbalize it, then you'll never know what the
right,
expectation was or is.
right, exactly.
So,
So you know, I think things could have been shared a little bit differently, but we run into that all the time, I think. So I think you have to have a really good feeling of self-confidence, like
yes.
being able to walk away from that and say, no, I really know what I'm doing and I do know how to do this. I just wasn't able to get what she specifically wanted, and
Right.
not take things personal.
Yeah.
So I think that's another skill that I think as a traveler you have to have is just, like part of you have to have kind of a turtle shell, to be able to like not take so many things personal.
Yeah. I definitely think you need to have be good at your job and be confident at your job before you start traveling. Because if you don't have that foundation, then you will get feedback that is not a true reflection of your skill set. And if you're not confident and experienced enough, I feel like it could, like really get to you versus like you said, if you have that confidence and that skill set already, then you can be like, okay, this is a them problem, not a me problem.
Right. Right. And even I ran into something here at this job, even, there's two travelers, myself and one other, and she came 2 weeks before me, and they sent her to a new location and they taught her how to put orders in and this, that, and the other. And then when I came, they didn't send me to a new location. They didn't teach me how to put orders in. They didn't. So they treated me very different than they treated her. And, um, she doesn't have as many years experience as I do. And so I thought, is there something about me they don't like? And I kind of was trying to figure it all out. And I'm like, no, they're just trying to fill a need right now. And that's the need. They had a need over in the new thing. And so they sent her. And since I've been here, she hasn't been over there that often, but they haven't needed to send me over there. So even that, on being trained differently and being trained to, help them in ways isn't personal. It's just that's the need that they had at the time,
Right.
when she showed up, and I'm filling a need that they have at the time when I showed up. It's just a different need.
Right.
So not even taking that personally, but it's a process. I had to come home and kind of walk myself through it. And it's not personal. It's just, this is what they're just trying to fill a need, period, the end,
Right.
and trust that. So yeah, it's always a challenge. Um, what other challenges have you had? Like, for me as a traveler, I was traveling from one job to another job and was in a really pretty serious car accident where I rolled my car, and they took me to the hospital, and I'm in the hospital in a place that I don't never been. I don't know anyone, nobody can help me. Nobody can come to the hospital, nobody. And so that
Yeah,
was an
that sounds
interesting,
terrible.
yeah, it was an interesting kind of situation. I'm like, well, what do you do with people who don't have a place to go?
Right.
I'm laying in the hospital with no friends, family, or anybody, and they're like, well, we'll
Yeah.
put you in a hotel for a night until you can get on your feet again. And, so, that was uh, a real experience as well, you know? So
Yeah.
have you run into anything similar or something like that? Or
I mean, we have had very healthy children until we started traveling, and then my oldest had a hospital stay, where she got diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, and so we got transferred because we were in the middle of nowhere, and so we got transferred to the local children's hospital, and then we had another hospital stay with my other daughter when she got some like freak skin infection that, like I'd never even heard of. And so she spent some time in a hospital. So yeah, it is hard because like you said, you don't have your family or friends there. So like they even had rules against like people being in the hospital, like so many visitors or this or that. And they were like, we got transferred. You know what I mean? So they had to literally like waive their policy for us because we were like, well, I have no one to watch my other kid. You're going to let us all sleep here, or we have nowhere to go because we are not even in the city we're staying in. We were transferred here. So yeah, we definitely ran into some interesting, experiences. And then, like health insurance for travelers, that's a whole different topic. Um,
right.
in general, the one that we had was not very, it didn't serve us very well, but it's all a learning experience. And we're on a different health insurance plan now. But I will say traveling is not designed for families when it comes to like health insurance coverage. They make it quite unaffordable. Um,
Right.
but I'm grateful for, like the time that we started traveling, and the experiences that we've had since traveling. I don't know how much longer we'll be able to travel just due to our family dynamic. And for specifically the health insurance, obstacle,
Right.
but we have loved it so far and are grateful that we've been able to travel these last few years.
Awesome. Yeah. What has been some of your favorite places to go or things to experience as a traveler?
Um, I mean, we pretty much consider ourselves Minnesotans. Like we've been there twice. We've been there twice, and we've even joked around about making that like our last hurrah, like because we just I don't know why we love it there so much. It's just so diverse, and like the town we're from in Tennessee is just not. It's not as diverse for sure, but we just love the diversity in Minnesota, and then all the like there's just so much family friendly stuff to do in that Minneapolis metropolitan area, and the people are so nice. So that's been our favorite. We're actually loving Portland, Oregon here. It's just full of so much nature, and we've got to go hiking, and they also have some like hidden treasures everywhere as far as things to do. So I think those are probably our two favorite cities. We're kind of like zoo snobs, so we've been to so many zoos. I wish I had like wrote them all down because now I can't even remember some of the ones we've been to, but Portland and the Memphis Zoo, like so Portland, Oregon and Memphis, Tennessee are the two best zoos we've been to so far. So yeah, like yours is baseball. I would say ours is like zoos. Like we just love, we're actually going to the zoo today. We love checking out all the zoos.
Have you been to the St. Louis Zoo?
Uh,
When you
you know what? I don't think we have. We've been to St. Louis, but I can't remember us going to the zoo. But there's a chance. I mean, we've been to so many. I literally
Yeah.
forget the ones we've been to. I don't remember us going to a zoo there.
Yeah, St. Louis and San Diego have really beautiful zoos. So
I've heard of the San
chance to
Diego
go.
one.
If you have a chance to go to those, they're awesome. But yeah, it's been
Good to
fun.
know.
But yeah, I think the life of I was thinking of this the other day. I wonder how much longer I have in me to do traveling, you know. Um
Yeah,
so yeah, I don't think it's for a lifetime all the time. Um for that lifestyle because it does get rather lonely, you know, as a person by myself. It does get
right.
lonely not to have community, you know, and I do build community at the places that I do stay, but it's not like a lifetime community, you know. So, and another reason I decided to travel is to see where I might want to retire too, you know. So,
Yeah,
um I love being able to say, "Oh yeah, I have friends in, you know, California and Arizona and all over the place, you know, Georgia and all these different places that I've been, you know, Indiana, Illinois." So that's fun. But yeah, just to be able to experience where I might want to sit down and finish out the rest of my life, you know, is kind of fun. So
yeah,
yeah,
I love that.
yeah. But I do agree the benefits are a little challenging and you have to know your why and why you want to do it and for how long, you know, you want to do it. So
Right.
um I think those are good things to know going into it, that it might not be a long time to do it. But
Yeah.
thank you for sharing and sharing your experience with us. I think it's always fun. You know, I think the other thing I want to mention is, you know, we make it look so romanticized sometimes. And I never forget one of our mutual friends decided to travel, I think because you were just so like, oh, it's great and I love it. And she
Hmm.
went out on her own and then s- found herself being very lonely, you know, like
Right.
not a lot to do and different things like that. So for everybody, it's a little different. You know, as a family unit, you're not by yourself, but as a single person, you are by yourself a lot. You know, there's
Yeah.
not, and having community is really hard to develop. And then once you develop it, you're leaving again, you know.
Right.
So, that is a challenge with traveling that is important to mention because
That's
it
true.
sounds so romanticized. Oh, you get to travel and you make a lot of money, but sometimes it's not a lot of money if you're, having to pay a mortgage and rent and find your own benefits,
Yeah.
um, during COVID, the pay was a lot more. Now the pay is getting a lot less. And so a lot of companies are paying things that I'm like, I could make more if I sat down at a full-time job,
Right.
and had a hell of a lot better benefits than what you're offering me. So it's definitely, you have to count the pros and the cons financially, for
Yeah.
yourself too, to see if it's worth the benefit or your purpose for really wanting to do it. So
Yeah.
thanks for your time. I appreciate it. Thank you for your friendship. I love having someone to bounce something off of occasionally and just say, hey, how's it going over in your neck of the woods?
Yeah, me too.
And just comparing business, even companies. There's so many companies out there. It's having that network of friends who can say, hey, this company has this. Are you open? Are you free? Or, you know, giving each other leads for different things. It's nice to have that kind of a community. So thanks for being that community for me. And thanks for your
Yes, of course.
time.
Of course. I hope you have a good weekend.
Yeah, you too. Thanks so much. We'll
You're
speak with you
welcome.
later.
Okay, bye.
Bye. Thank you for tuning in to It's All About the Frequency podcast. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Share it with a friend and remember to keep your frequency high.